Hey there, I'm Sharon Welch, and welcome to A Brave Journey, the podcast to help you throw out those legacy belief and identity stories that you've been lugging around on autopilot for decades, so you can jump back in the driver's seat of your aliveness again. When you change your mind, you change your life. Are you ready? Let's get into it. It'll be fun. I mentioned a couple episodes back that I was going through the suck, going through another period of caught between the now and the not yet. The idea that there is a discomfort and a chaos before that next level of evolution or transformation or change in your life. And it's given me sort of an opportunity to pause and think about the tools that I've developed over the years to help me navigate these cycles. And one that keeps coming top of mind for me is this idea of community and connection. I know several episodes back, we talked about loneliness and how it's so pervasive in our culture. It's an unspoken epidemic of sorts. But I wanted to talk a little more deeply about that because it's just been a theme that has been showing up so much in my life. And I've had the opportunity as I go through this process of discomfort to really think about the power of connection and community. I mean, obviously, this is something that I place a lot of value and emphasis on. The tagline for my business, She Lives Out Loud, is connection, community, aliveness. So it's definitely a cornerstone to who I am, which is somewhat of a departure from how I have spent quite a bit, certainly the last several years of my adult life. I very much had a force field of sorts, a coat of armor around me as I navigated living in a skin I didn't fit in, living in an inauthentic way. And the only way really to keep my secret, so to speak, was to not allow anyone to truly get beyond the surface that I was willing to show to people. So inside, I was quite isolated compared to what people saw on the outside, which was a vivacious, well connected person. And so I've been thinking a lot about this concept of community or a tribe or deep connections with other humans and why that can be so hard. There tends to be a contradiction of both prizing and valuing individualism and being different. And then the other side of that is finding your tribe, right? People who are just like you. So it's that contradiction, that paradox, or the paradox between finding your tribe and, birds of a feather flock together sort of idea. And then also being open to other ways of thinking that are different from yours, being open to exposing yourself to that through travel or learning or observing or however you come to that information. I recently attended adult summer camp through an organization called Location Indie. Camp Indie 2024 was just such an amazing gathering of people who are trying to not only find their tribe, but to do it in their own way. And if you haven't experienced Location Indie and Camp Indie, definitely check out the information in the show notes of today's podcast for more information. It might be something you want to look at. And one of the keynotes, Lily Fouts, did a talk about her experience with finding her way while also being a fugitive from the FBI. So if that intrigues you, also look for information on how to connect with Lily. But one of the things that she talked about was this idea that we need to both put ourselves in situations where we get out of our own Kool-Aid, so to speak. We get out of our own way of thinking to be open to other ways that the world exists that are also just as true and correct and authentic as ours. and also find that tribe of people who get that, who get us, who are like us in that way. And there is, a way to do both. So we've talked about before that life is actually all about paradox in every single aspect and corner of it. So part of personal growth and development is to become comfortable with that sort of discomfort. Our brain wants there to be one answer, right or wrong, hot or cold, kind or mean, and that is an answer that we will never get to, because to go through life is to live in paradox. And we are wired to be wanting and craving and seeking being part of something bigger. We just are. In the beginning of time, it was for survival. And now it's really more for belonging and acceptance. But for many of us, we feel disconnected from those deep connections in communities and tribes. And I've been thinking a lot about that. Why does it feel so hard sometimes to feel connected or understood or supported by the communities and tribes that could be the key for us being our strongest, best, most authentic selves? And I think, some of it is that there tends to be right now, at least in our culture, an emphasis on individualism. We look for that standout person, and we, give them the blue ribbon when they go their own way and do their own thing. And also, those are the same people who, when they get to a certain point or would become enough uncomfortable with how they stand out, that's when we have to reel them back. That's when we have to tear them down. So there's the paradox of be an individual, but don't be so much of an individual that you threaten me and how I feel about myself, or I'm going to have to take you down a peg. So I think we see that play out many times as we go through our news feeds and social media and in our lives. I think we've all seen, you know, indications of that. And some of it, I think, is there are real impacts of seeing a curated world online where it's frowned upon to show your warts, so to speak. There is a bit of pressure when you go through these periods of time where things aren't as perfect as you'd like, or as perfect as you'd like people to believe, to hide inside ourselves and not show that part, because we do have that fear of not belonging. We do have that fear of not being accepted. And, I've had this drumbeat, this mantra since we began this conversation many months ago, that we hide from each other in these periods of time when we're on a rough road. And it's self-preservation, right? And if you look at all of those contributing factors to why it is so hard to develop those true, deep, vulnerable connections with others, some of it is we just don't have, or just have not been taught, the tools and skills for how to confront and combat the personal psychological states like shame and embarrassment and fear, so that we can get to the other side of that to realize those true, authentic connections, to find that tribe of people that understands us, truly hears us, so that they can support us. Because, to have those tools to navigate shame and embarrassment and fear, you have to get past shame, embarrassment, and fear to receive those lessons, to receive those tools. So as I'm going through this process, this cycle that I will continue to have throughout my whole life, as we all will, I'm just really realizing the value of doing that work and leaning into that discomfort to do it still, as you've heard me say before. And I think at no time in the past was I ever as proactive about seeking out and nurturing those vulnerable connections as I have been the last several months. And I do have a tribe of people around me that understand me. My tribe, interestingly, is a collection of people who, while we have some key areas where we are all of like mind, we are all so very different, which is an amazing place to be. When you have a base tribe of people who are not carbon copies of you, that's the strongest kind of tribe of all. That's the one where you can be seen and heard and celebrated and supported by people who can be wildly different from you. And the empowerment that you get from that, rather than the echo chamber of a tribe of people who are all exactly like you, is really transformational. And I'm so grateful to be at a point in my life where I'm willing to take those risks. I think the reason for that is I've seen both sides of that coin. I have seen in my past that by protecting myself, hiding my challenges or weaknesses or mistakes in the interest of appearing more acceptable and more celebratable to the people around me, and then compare that with the open kimono vulnerability of admitting when I need help or seeking out support from others. I've seen the difference. In the former, it's counterintuitive. All of the things that I did to keep myself safe that came from fear or shame or embarrassment, what that really did was cut me off from the support that I needed. And what that really did was continue to keep me on a path that caused me to keep up appearances and not allow who I am authentically to be fully expressed. And when I counterintuitively became vulnerable and allowed myself to be seen in all my imperfect glory, that was when I found the best, launching pad to truly be who I am and to truly feel good about it and feel the joy and abundance of being able to be myself, to be able to exhale in a world where I before, as I mentioned before, was always holding my breath and tensing my abs, waiting for the next gut punch. And so I think for me, what I'm realizing is you have to step past that fear at some point if you truly want to not only get on a path that feels authentic to you, but to truly experience those deep human connections. You have to step past that fear. There was someone who years ago said, just past the fear lies the freedom. And I think that's what we're really talking about here. We tend to make fear important and special. We tend to befriend our fear and allow it to have all the space that it wants in our lives. When if we could just make fear not special and not interesting and just treat it as any other thing, obstacle, occurrence that we come across on a daily basis and just walk right past it, that really is where we find the freedom. I can tell you, I am a mess, a quivering, fearful mess inside every time I reach out in a vulnerable way to ask for help, to admit a mistake, to just seek out a hug or a kind word, or to encourage and initiate a deep and meaningful conversation with someone who's important to me. I am. I'm going to admit it. And also, every time I do that, I'm so grateful on the other side of it that I did that, because what I get out of it and how it feeds me is just immeasurable. And so over the last several weeks, as I'm in the middle of this transformation process, I have found myself, probably because I have somehow put myself in positions where I am getting to practice that. I'm getting to work that muscle, going to Camp Indie and being able to not go there to build my business or, any of the things that maybe I tried to go to camp for last year, but my intention was really to go to have those deep connections. And I did. The conversations that I had and just the get real chats that I had with people where I admitted my struggles and where I got to listen in an empathetic, open way to the struggles of other people and the celebrations of other people was just, again, so transforming and just a reminder of why we need to do that. And to be back home now after that experience and to be able to continue to reach out to my tribe and share what I'm feeling and celebrate their wins and support them in their challenges. I'm just realizing it becomes almost addicting itself. This idea that, boy, when we can get past that quaking and that nervousness we feel inside about being vulnerable, it's just so amazingly joyful on the other side when you do that and you just realize how much your soul craved that. So over the last several weeks, I think the thing that is helping me the most to get to the other side of the discomfort of that coming out of the cocoon into the next level of transformation has been those communities and me connecting to them. Not only my location indie and Mexico retreat tribe, but my tribe of women who we have stuck together with since the pandemic, a book club that rarely reads a book, but always supports each other, the wins, the losses, the silliness, and really trying to invest time in meeting new people. I also don't want to become so insular with my tribes that I've become more comfortable with, my communities that are like minded with me, but remember the paradox of also be open to the new. So I've really made an effort over the last several weeks to, take the invitation to go to coffee and meet somebody new, even though inside I'm grumbling about it, or go on the first date, or, you know, try out the new class and meet people that are doing something that I don't know how to do and I feel dumb. I'm really having myself do those things. And what I'm finding is this process that I'm going through, while I'll still describe it as the suck, I'm still also actually feeling such joy about the freedom that I do have in my life. And I'm feeling such joy about the possibilities that are ahead of me, that are always ahead of me. So I'm finding, as I said before, everything is a paradox. I'm going through this challenging period where I questioned every adult decision I've ever made. And also, I have never been more joyful about what is in my life right now and the potential for what's going to continue to be in my life going forward. And I think that's the most important thing is as you practice it more and more, how you can become comfortable and even grateful for the paradox that shows up everywhere in your life. And I think underpinning all of that is being willing to get past that fear and being willing to get past that shame or embarrassment of being vulnerable about who you are, because that's the only way that your community and that your tribe can recognize you. The longer we hide behind our facades where we think we are creating a world of safety for us, the harder we make it for the people who will truly see us and celebrate us and support us. We make ourselves harder to find. And so that's the paradox. You have to release your grip on this supposed world of safety you've created around yourself by putting up those facades and wearing those masks to hide who we are. Keep that part of us safe. Release that grip and be open and vulnerable enough so that the people who can truly come in and create a safety net of support and celebration for you can actually see you. They got to get past the smoke screens. So I hope that you will consider that the next time you're going through something challenging, that if you just remember that just past the fear lies the freedom, it will give you that little glimmer of courage to take that very next step and be vulnerable and open yourself to allowing those people to find you. Hey, thanks for listening to A Brave Journey. I'm so happy we're here. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow and leave a review, and share this with a friend who could benefit too. See you next time.